Hey guys, you're watching Daniel and Gian review, and today we are going to do a full review of Margarita with the Straw, starring, I guess we've been pronouncing her name wrong. It's Kalki Koechlin.
Koechlin, okay.
Kalki Koechlin.
I never would have gotten that.
2014 feature film about a woman with cerebral palsy who moves to the United States and has some very life-changing moments. How'd you feel about it, man?
I mean, it was a heavy movie. I don't know. Again, I don't know where your headspace was when you watched it. Meaning, like, were you like, oh, I'm gonna sit down and relax? And like, it was like 2 or 3 in the morning when I decided to watch it, and so I was already tired. And I'm just like, okay.
And you were kind of in your feelings because it's 3 in the morning.
And so it was like it was a rough experience, especially towards those last 30 minutes. But I mean, overall, I'm glad I watched it. I think it's up there in terms of like the best Indian movies that I've seen so far. Obviously, we haven't watched very many, but so far, it's I don't know. I don't know if that's because it's more Americanized. I feel like because and as I found out later, like the Sundance Institute was involved in it, so it kind of felt like movies like Fruitvale Station, where it's character-based. There's no story here. I mean, you can make the argument that there is a story, but there's no traditional narrative. It's all about the character. I don't know. How'd you feel about it?
It definitely felt like a Sundance film. Like, definitely felt like, especially that third act. That third act was total, like, you know what? We don't need to have a complete story here, so we're just gonna throw this shit out there.
I mean, it did have a complete story, but I hear you. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I'm gonna disagree that it had a complete story. I feel like it was just there were some elements that were just thrown in there. There was no setup for it, no build up. They were just kind of thrown in there, and they were all resolved right pretty much immediately after they're thrown in there. And I don't know. I saw it, and I saw your tweets. And then when I actually saw it, I don't feel like it hit me the same way it hit you emotionally.
It hit me. It's because you're a heartless bastard.
That's what it is. No, I want to say, like, performance-wise, I think she did a good job for what she was doing. I don't really know too many people with cerebral palsy, other than Flynn.
Yeah, from Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad, I think she went a little heavier.
Well, see, I think my favorite part about it, and we can get into the acting right now since that's one of the topics we're going to be talking about. It didn't even bother me. Like it wasn't. I felt like it wasn't really a movie about that. It was just about her. Like I wasn't feeling bad, or like she wasn't being put into situations where I was like, oh man,
Right. Well, they definitely did I don't know if you want to call it a good job, but the situation she was put in had nothing to do with her condition. Like it had,
It wasn't a feel-bad movie
like
we thought we were going to get.
Yeah, it wasn't a pity movie about,
which is what I enjoyed.
It wasn't an empowerment movie either for.
She's human, and I think that's the main thing. She's human.
Right.
She has this ailment, and but like the mother, like I enjoyed the mother's performance from the beginning because I don't know, everything felt natural. All the performances felt subtle. There was nothing really over the top. There was no flamboyance here.
No, definitely not.
The dad was really reserved.
Yeah, everything was like really in the pocket. It was very solid performance.
The brother, her brother.
Yeah, there was like you could tell like we've watched some movies where they kind of throw people out there and they they're like a fish out of water.
I was expecting that when I was seeing the American, like we were going to be in New York. I'm like, oh great,
right.
The American performances are going to be what ruins the movie.
The best part about the American performance was there was no American performances.
You had the one black guy playing chess. And then
that guy had one line, and then you had the professor who had
a few lines,
one little scene,
and then the bartender with the worst ADR ever. Like his lines were terrible.
There was no lines there. That was definitely they recorded him way after.
Absolutely. But I mean, even the protest until the tear gas or whatever, the smoke started coming out. Like that was believable. That was real. Like what I mean is like what they were saying was probably based on reality. It didn't feel like. And again, I'm only going to compare this to movies that we've seen, but like in My Name Is Khan, when they were having any sort of protest, clearly they were using the most stereotypical, over-the-top, non-realistic versions of protest, as opposed to like this, where you might have a protest because some kid died, which is what that little scene was about.
It definitely felt more like a college protest as well. Like they did.
But you wouldn't have the smokes coming out so easy,
Right.
Unless someone was getting fucked up, like. they cross that line. But it was for effects. I get it. I understand why they did
Yeah.
it. And then it was a good segue. Little out of left field, but a good segue for the Pakistani girl, and I'm forgetting her name, but her introduction. I didn't know she was blind from the trailer, so that was an interesting twist.
Yeah, I didn't really realize she was blind until like at the end of their conversation.
She thought she was just cross-eyed?
Yeah, I was like, I didn't know what was going on, and then I actually didn't notice it. Maybe I wasn't paying like close enough attention, but I didn't notice it until she reached out and started filling up her hand, and then I was like, oh shit, she's blind.
What did you think about that?
Her being blind? I think.
Do you think that was too much?
I don't think it was too much, but I definitely feel like it was a device. It was a vehicle.
So you didn't feel like
that was like kind of like using that to justify like why this girl would why they would hook up in the first place, because they both have their own kind of sort of disabilities, and that's how they connect, through the disability. I mean, they're both from the same part of the world, even if they're from different countries.
Yeah, that's true.
And then they both have disabilities. They're both in a foreign country, and that's how they bond.
Because I was thinking like, oh, this might be too much, because we always talk about setting up the world.
Yeah.
You're allowed one magical element, and for this, it's her having cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden if she were to encounter another one who was Pakistani, you'd be like, okay, this is too much. So like the blind girl is like right on that surface of believability.
It's on the edge.
And it didn't bother me at all.
No.
And especially like how everything turned out at the end. I mean, it was clearly a device, especially when she does end up cheating on the girl. And this is a spoiler, so we're assuming that you guys have seen the movie. But when she says that line to her at the end, he could see me.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty fucking strong line, man. I don't know. I just.
It was definitely brutal. It
was honest. It was real, and it fucking. I didn't cry because of that. I cried because the mom died. But that was an impactful scene because she just went through being not really lied to, but kind of being lied to by her own father, because her dad no one ever told her about her mom's ailments at all. And so I'm assuming that like she saw this and she was like, I'm not going to do this to her. I'm going to just tell her right away. And that kind of led into something else. Obviously led to their downfall.
I mean, that's kind of a leap of faith. I feel like that was actually one of the issues I had, was just none of that was set up very well.
Well, I think that's what it was. I mean, that's for me. That's what when I watched it, that's what it was. I didn't think about it after, like, why did she do that? Like I took that leap already. So, but I know what you're talking about.
I saw it and I was kind of like, this is. It all came out of left field, like that last third act. Everything, even her mom being sick, came out of left field. Like,
I mean, it didn't. It totally didn't.
Where I remember
the very beginning of the movie, they go to a doctor and she's getting blood, and then you don't know that she had cancer like to that extent, but she definitely had problems, and they definitely alluded to it there.
I'm gonna go with that happened so fucking fast that I missed it, because I must have turned my head away from the screen for like 3 seconds.
I'm just saying it was there. It was.
Well,
there.
I'm saying
because the daughter wasn't there.
Like,
it was just.
This is stuff where you got to put it on screen a little bit longer. Because I'm telling you right now, I may have just turned to look at Baby G for a second and then did not see that scene.
But I feel like it's such a misdirect, because you don't know what it is, and they never bring it up again between then and now. I don't know. I feel like that's a strong choice, because this is an unconventional movie. It's what it is. It really is. I mean, from just the lack of story, the lack of stakes, the lack of like, I want to go and pursue this and you're going to watch me fail at this. It has nothing to do with that. It's just a day-to-day exploration of this girl, in my opinion. And they don't even go to the day-to-day. For me, it's kind of like these weird time jumps where you don't really know where we're at. Doesn't really go into like, does it talk about why the mom came to New York? Like, they don't really set up a lot of things. So you're right. I just think.
Well, part of it is I think she came with her to New York because she has a condition and she's never lived by herself, so she was trying to kind of set her up. I mean, that makes more sense.
See, that's funny that you think that makes sense, but to me, it's like.
Well, she's got cerebral palsy. She's never lived on her own. It would make sense that
I know, and it makes sense to me that she would tell her Pakistani girlfriend about her cheating on her because her dad lied to her.
Well, I mean, I think the whole cheating thing came out of nowhere, too.
That came out of nowhere. That I will 100% concede with.
And yeah.
Because it kind of pissed me off, because it was like, that could have happened earlier in their relationship.
And I mean, you can make the argument that was set up, too, because she had already done like something selfish when she like basically broke up with the other wheelchair guy to try to chase after the the Chinese guy who's Indian.
Who's not Chinese, yeah.
The
singer
lead
of the
singer
band
guy, yeah.
Which was that was a shitty scene.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way, but like that.
I mean, there's
sucked.
a lot of stuff I like. For example, you know, where she's crying, says he doesn't love me. That's another one. If they showed that in the movie, like that was one of those where I turned my head for a second and I missed that.
In the bathroom when she's showering with
After
her mom?
you know the guy
yeah,
the guy turns her down, you know.
And then she talks to her mom.
Yeah.
Her mom's bathing her.
And then they kind of alluded there was some sort of scandal at the school, and that's why she was leaving the school, or was it because of the boy?
No, she said, I'm done with this school. Like, I can't go back here. Like, it's just, I can't. So then that's when they started to look elsewhere, and then I guess...
Yeah, and that was like, also, that was a little...
That was bridged, like, no one, there was no,
that
like...
was a little extreme, too. Like, it's just like, you know, this guy rejects me, and now I gotta leave the fucking
I don't know,
country.
man. You're in the minutia. That stuff to me is not important at all.
What are you talking about?
Like, the circumstance of that.
It's not important that she leaves the country.
No, because she went to New York. She went to NYU.
She went to New York, NYU for a reason.
But who cares?
Her dad talks to her about it.
But
She's
that's
like, you know, there's other schools. You know, you don't have to leave the country. There's other schools we can go to that are in the area.
Well, I know. But she didn't. The mom didn't want her. I don't know why. You don't know why, but it's not important. It's just a way to get her from point A to point B.
No, I think that's pretty damn important.
I don't, because it doesn't affect the character study at all. It doesn't affect it at all. What does that have to do with okay, let's assume they fucking explained everything. How does that change her character?
It just doesn't, it's not a good enough reason to leave.
From a story perspective, sure. But as a character study, which this is...
Okay, and that's like, these movies don't work for me because of that. Because you just kind of throw shit out there because you throw whatever you want on the screen.
But that's not
with no
like
rhyme
that.
or reason.
But that's not true.
It absolutely is true. It absolutely is true. Like this, how did her going to New York change her character at all? All it did was make her a dyke eventually. Excuse me. All it does is turn her into a lesbian. You know, that's about it. You know, so why go to New York at all? She could have went to somewhere else. She could have went to Europe.
Well, why not?
I mean, it's just an extreme jump. Like the way, and it's set up in the film. Like, why do you have to go to New York? They talk about it. Maybe if they didn't address it at all. Maybe if it was like something so
do you think?
Maybe it was something that she'd been talking about at the beginning of the film. Like that she, you know, there's this program she wanted to go to in NYU. And then all of a sudden it was a surprise. Like after she has this big letdown, she like puts her heart out wears her heart on her sleeve. Dude turns her down, and then this is kind of a build back up.
So you think this should have just stayed in India?
Well, I'm not saying it should have stayed in India, but it should have been set up better. Her going to New York, a reason for going to New York.
I don't know, man.
This is like an extreme circumstance to go to New York.
Because I look at it
as... It feels like she's going to New York to leave the city she's at because of what happened to her at the school. I mean, based on the one or two lines that her dad is saying. If those lines aren't there, and if there's another reason for her to go.
I don't think it's a problem. I don't think it's an issue. We looked at the movie completely differently.
Yeah.
Because that's not an issue at all for me. Because it has nothing to do with that. And if your argument was it should have been an India story, stayed in India, and New York brought nothing to it, then we could talk about it. But I mean, in terms of setup, in
reality, New York really doesn't bring anything to it because she doesn't even interact with American people. The whole she's interacting with.
Well, she's away from home.
Yeah,
she's away from home.
But she could have done that somewhere else.
I don't know. Maybe you don't meet a Pakistani girl. Maybe you don't meet a free-spirited individual that she can do these things because she's locked in. I don't know. You'd have to ask the director.
In Amsterdam, the girl meets a Pakistani guy in PK. So.
And they had a whole love. I mean, what you're saying is there should have been a 20-minute love.
There should have been a 20-minute love scene with songs.
With songs, and then it would have been a better movie.
A lot of dancing, a big montage sequence. And
there's no music in this. There was no dancing.
It's the same song. They play the same song over and over. Well, they dance a little bit. They dance when she gets her drunk for the first time. And the jazz singer's doing her thing or whatever.
She's dancing on her, and then...
Right.
I mean, there's the songs in the club, but I don't know, man. I guess we're on different wavelengths here, because I guess I just watch movies like this. You don't. No. That's really when it comes down to.
Yeah, definitely. There's a reason why I don't watch movies like this, because they're just like... I didn't hate it. I wasn't like...
Sounds like you do.
No, I'm just pointing out the facts. I'm pointing out the stuff about it.
I know, but you're pointing out the littlest things that are inconsequential to the whole narrative.
The stuff that bothered me.
I know, but it doesn't.
It's not inconsequential. There's just a bunch of stuff that's just thrown out there with no rhyme or reason
like what?
to
Besides
it.
what
I
you
just
mentioned.
said that.
Besides that.
Okay, she cheats on her. That comes out of nowhere. The guy that has sex with her is not built up at all. He just all of a sudden decides, okay, I'm gonna give her the business.
But isn't that how life works?
No, it's not how life works. I mean, they tried to set that up. I already said it. They tried to set that up with her being like shitting on the other guy, Drew, at the beginning of the film, that she kind of has these selfish tendencies, and then they try to wrap it up at the end when the girl tells her, "Hey, you're just a selfish person. You just all you care about is like not being alone or whatever." She's a line about that when when she tells her, "Hey, I cheated on you," out of nowhere, like, "Hey, my mom's dying. You're here helping me grieve. I feel guilty enough to tell you this." And I don't know. I just don't. I guess I don't like her character. Maybe that's the problem.
That's probably what it is.
I mean, she's a shitty person. It's a wheelchair or not, she's a shitty person.
I guess.
And then at the end of the film, she wraps it up like, you know what? I'm happy with myself. That's why I'm going on a date with myself. I'm happy with. I
didn't like the ending. I'll agree with that.
Like this whole
I thought
thing.
The ending was
about
stupid.
she does all these little shitty things. She never really gets punished for it. And then at the end, she's like, okay, I'm just happy.
I mean, isn't
with
she
myself.
living with her punishment every day?
I mean, that's one way of putting it. Does that justify?
What does she do wrong?
What are you talking about? She has a guy that cares about her at the beginning. She shits on him because she saw the grass is green on the other side. There's another able-bodied person. She gets a chance to hook up with another.
So she's supposed to be with disabled
she
people?
She gets a hook up with another disabled-bodied person again and cheats on her fucking girlfriend.
Yeah, and then at the end, really,
and then at the end, she's happy with herself.
And thematically, that's the perfect.
There's like no punishment, nothing.
Because she realizes
there's really no arc to her character.
There is a
story
punishment. She went first
now,
of all.
Her mom dies, but her mom dying has nothing to do with her decisions.
Yes, but it has to do with the girl that she actually found that appreciated her for who she was, lost her because she was selfish. That is a consequence. The band that she was in, that's gone.
But did she really?
That is a consequence. I mean, is it a consequence like?
Did she really lose her, or did she not go
like
back to the States because her mom died, so now she wants to stay home with her dad and her brother?
She went. The girlfriend flew back.
Yeah, the girlfriend flew back, but she didn't go back. But why didn't she go back?
I don't know. I mean,
because they broke up.
I'm just saying, thematically, on a thematic level, everything you literally just laid out the theme perfectly as to why it actually makes sense.
I think sometimes when you say these thematic levels on a theme basis, it kind of sounds like when people say human instinct, which is bullshit. Like instincts.
But that doesn't make any sense.
That's a word that has no meaning to it.
If this is a literary movie that doesn't abide by Hollywood narratives, and we're going to use Hollywood narratives to describe the three-act structure. That's just what we do. So just please don't give us shit about comparing it to Hollywood. That's not what we're doing. But it doesn't follow those rules because it is a Sundance film, if you want to call it that. Because it's about the theme. Like you said, you laid it out perfect. That is what the movie's about. She wants an able-bodied person. She has an opportunity. She goes, falls on her face. She does it again later. She falls on her face. And by the end of it, she realizes, oh, I don't need any of that. I just really need to be myself. That's what it is. Because she even says that only my mom really understood me. And now I have no one really but myself. That's a fucking pretty far out there message, because you're right. She was not the best person, but that is the theme, because maybe not like in terms of over the course of 3 months or however the span of this movie takes place, but I definitely feel like there's life, that this shit happens like that too. Or it's like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not disabled, so I can't speak for them, but I feel like they want to be normal.
You already said that her being disabled had nothing to do with the movie.
No, I know it doesn't have anything to do with the movie. I mean,
so then that's like...
But it's a fact.
It's kind of fallen on its face.
It's not has nothing to do with the movie in the sense of like I Am Sam, where it had to do with the movie. There was no stakes where it was like, oh, you have a child, so I'm going to take it from you because you're disabled. And, oh, we're going to have Sam raise an able-bodied child until the kid is smarter than he is, and then you're going to actually feel bad about it. Or in My Name is Khan, where you're actually going to feel bad about X, Y, or Z that he did because he's not a normal person too, even though, does he have Tourette syndrome? Isn't that what they said?
No, he had Asperger's.
Asperger's. But it's just like, that was clearly written in to make people feel bad about his ailments. Right? And there was no stylization. There was no moments where, when she eventually did go out with the guy or they hooked up, which is weird because they didn't set that up at all. There was no dates. They didn't go on any like fun adventures. There was no fun and games in the movie that involved her and this other guy.
No, there wasn't even like any overt flirting. There
none.
was just...
I mean, especially when he's kissing the other guy, the girl, and then she's like, "Oh, that's your girlfriend." He's like, "No, just my friend." And she's like, "What? You guys kiss friends here?" But anyway, my point is, yes, there's no setup there for that. Absolutely, I agree with you 100%.
I mean, the whole movie has no setups.
But
it's just a bunch of shit that just happens on screen.
But there are plans and payoffs.
Setups.
There are the mom being one of them. I don't know if you missed it, I guess, but it's there.
I mean, I'm like I've been scrolling through it now, and I'm like I don't even know at what point it happens.
I mean, what would you have wanted to happen as a consequence then? Let's go. Okay, if you were writing this movie, you had to stick to these characters. You had to stay in New York.
That's a terrible question. We don't ask that. We don't do this to rewrite the movies.
But what would you have done differently?
What would I have done differently with this movie? I don't know. I wouldn't have written this movie in the first place.
What would have been an adequate punishment for her?
I mean, she shouldn't have. That's the thing is, you're asking me for a solution when there was no setup for the scenario in the first place.
There is
You know, I don't know. You could have done more. You could have done more setup. We could have seen the guy that she cheats on the girlfriend a little more. We could have seen him maybe be in the pit. He was on screen like 3 times.
3 times for sure.
You know, and like we don't see him at all. So we don't. There's no chemistry built there. And then all of a sudden she just jumps in.
I agree. I didn't like
build
that
her,
angle at all.
Maybe build her like falling into temptation a little more, like her like giving into temptation, because that's what I was getting from is like she just doesn't think about shit. She just does it, you know, and maybe show that that's kind of part of her character. It doesn't really do that though. Like it tries to make her a romantic. That's what I felt like. They tried to make it to a romantic. They tried to make this thing about her where she's like, she wants to be a free spirit, but she can't because of her condition. But it just doesn't get developed on screen properly for me. I never felt that.
That's a better analyzation than what you gave me, in my opinion. Now, I'd recommend you watch, and for those out there who haven't seen it, Blue is the Warmest Color. For people who out there want to see what Gion's talking about to a T, it's in that movie. Because that's the characterization. It's a 3-hour French movie. So I know those are 2 strikes against it right away.
Absolutely.
But because what he just said, for me, in my opinion, is a perfect, that is a valid flaw. Because they did try to romanticize it. But it worked in some parts, though. That's why I think those middle moments in New York with the Pakistani girl worked, because they did have those fun and games. They at least went out to go dancing. They at least, moved in together. They didn't go very far into it, but you at least saw a little bit of it. So you can at least have some sort of stability for the end, right? But when the guy comes in,
and there's also the part about the bisexuality. She considers herself bisexual, and I didn't really buy it either.
I didn't buy that either.
I felt like, you're not bisexual. You just like attention. This person's giving you attention.
I agree
and
on
you're taking it.
That I 100% agree with, because I was like, are you really bisexual, or is it just because, like you just said, she's willing to show you love and affection that you haven't received from anyone else?
And it's like, and then it gets brought up again at the end when they have their little.
And some would argue that that's valid.
What's that?
Some would argue that that's valid.
That she brings it up in the end.
No. That it's valid that. Just because of if you like a woman's touch.
No, I mean, I'm not trying to make this a social debate in that regard. I just, like I said, once again, it wasn't really developed on screen. You don't really see her checking out other girls. This happens because this girl is when they go to the museum.
She
together,
mentions boys all the time up until they
and they're in the museum together, and then the girl kind of rubs her down, and she likes the way it feels when the girl touches her face. That's about it. It's never her
Well, I've never sucked dick before, so I can't say if that's what happens.
I mean, I feel like there's a curiosity that goes on. Like maybe her checking out other women's bodies or something.
I agree.
The locker room sequence would have been perfect for that. She's there.
She looks away. She wasn't
exactly
she was embarrassed and uncomfortable. But I mean, I can get why socially too. I mean, because I think. The reason why I feel like you're harping on minutia is because there's a lot of things that the movie still does right. There's a lot of commentary there that I feel like it might be underdeveloped, but I think the fact that it exists in a movie that wasn't made by a Westerner, in my opinion, I think is a big deal, because this movie does not fit into the molds of other Indian films we've seen.
No, definitely
in my
not.
opinion. It's touching on, I mean, the conversation with the mom at the end when she does tell her finally, after 3 or 4 times she's trying to tell her I'm bisexual. She's like, what is that? That's gross. And then she dies, literally a scene or 2 later.
Right.
But, and I'm going to give it to you. I get it. I get convenience. I get it. I don't know. I was wrapped up in the circumstance. I'm not gonna lie. It grabbed me. But I mean, that's something significant. I mean, there's one joke about the passport thing, and she's like, I didn't get my passport.
Yeah.
The Indian government didn't let me get my passport, which is, I thought it was a perfect timing wise, because I believed her, and only now too. And it's what's great about it is because of the last 9 months we've been doing all this shit. We just still don't know anything about India, Pakistan in terms of like the whole history, but we know enough now that like there's a real beef here. It's not just it's a real Bloods versus Crips thing.
Right.
It's not just they fight for World Cup games or whatever.
No.
Like, it's a real thing.
It's not a rivalry.
Exactly. That's what I was looking for. The word I was looking for.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh fuck, because that's probably true. That probably does happen to people where it's like, oh, you're Pakistani, you're not gonna get your passport.
Yeah.
You're fucked. And then she obviously, which was fucked up too, because I was like, man, you're gonna take her all the way to fucking India to meet your parents, and then you're gonna tell her you cheated on her.
Right.
You might have just kept that one to yourself. You might have just taken the L.
Yeah, well,
and
that was just another way of. I mean, if we're going with the angle that she's kind of a shitty person, that was another shitty move, And that's for all you guys out there. You cheat on your girlfriend, you cheat on your boyfriend. Don't ever fucking tell them. There's no reason to fucking tell them ever. It never goes well. They don't forgive you. They don't forget about it. They keep on throwing it in your face, or they break up with you. Nothing good comes of it. You're just getting it off your chest. You're being fucking selfish. That's twice you're being selfish. One, because you cheated on them, and two, because you need to get it off your chest to let them know because you feel guilty. Two kinds of selfishness right there. You're a shitty person if you do that. So it's just her continually being a shitty person once again. And I don't think that they were trying to make it out like that. And I always have a problem with films when your protagonist is a shitty person and doesn't really do anything to redeem themselves. For this film, for me, the redeeming quality about her was that she's disabled. She has cerebral palsy. That's the only redeeming quality.
So do you think she was a shitty person, or do you think she was just a person who was just doing shitty things? And do you think there's a difference?
Okay, there's a difference. I don't think she's like an inherently bad person, but I feel
being selfish is a hallmark of being a shitty person.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of selfishness there, and then and it's just underdeveloped stuff. It might be because she's been disabled and she's been enabled because of that, but we don't really see that much enabling because of it.
I'll go with that.
And we've seen films, we've seen other things where someone gets enabled and they get called out on it, and finally that's like, what, you're right, I have been enabled.
I mean, his friend kind of calls her the first boyfriend.
Right.
Kind of calls her out on it,
and he forgives her right away too.
I know. They go and get a mani-pedi like
Yeah.
when she comes back. Which is why I didn't really believe that they were together. I mean,
Yeah.
she kind of alluded that they weren't. And it was, for me, when I watched it, I felt like that was her only outlet, was this one guy.
Right.
Like, because
he's the only other guy. He's the only other guy in the school.
They kissed in the library or whatever.
An awkward makeout session. Yeah.
It was weird. But then once someone did give her attention, I mean, the thing is, do you blame her though?
I don't know.
That's why I'm saying, is it out of the realm of reality? Like, do you blame her for doing that? Is that, if I was disabled and a normal person, quotes, gave me attention like that?
I mean, that just comes down to, like, if I put myself in that person's shoes, and then it's just a big leap of faith.
But that's what maybe that's what I did the whole movie. Maybe that's.
I don't know. I don't really see it that way. I mean, I feel like just the level of delusion, that.
I think she was delusional, and I think that's kind of what the ending's about too. I mean, she went from like, maybe she accepted her delusions because she was literally having a date with herself.
Yeah,
that's pretty delusional. I mean, you can't get any more delusional than that. But again, that was a thematic ending. I don't know. I just felt like for a movie that was made for $1 million, she made the movie. She put $400,000 of her own money up for it because the whatever studio only gave her half, and then. From there, it was they shot it for 2 months, which is a pretty crazy schedule. I mean, a lot went into it. So for me, the final product definitely, it's one of the few circumstances where I'd actually take the production into account for the final movie because usually we don't do that.
Yeah.
Usually we say, oh, you had these problems, well, tough shit, we all deal with it. You either do it good or you do it justice or not. But I mean, she did a lot of research to make sure that the palsy was accurate, like all these things were accurate. The blind. The actual girl wasn't blind, but
right,
she had to.
Figured she wasn't.
But she had to like learn all this stuff, and so a lot went into it. And so for me, that did aid to it. But I definitely think what you say is valid about her being selfish. Cinematography, this is a jump, but cinematography looked great.
Yeah,
through.
The look of the film was awesome. Like I that was very high quality film, especially for an indie film.
That takes place in multiple countries.
Yeah.
Because I figured, because they filmed in New York. That's the thing. Like when I'm like, oh, they're in New York, they're gonna have to. Half the budget's going to be there right away. And not because half the movie takes place, but I mean, just because by being in New York.
Permits and everything you have to deal with.
I can't even imagine what that was like.
But no, it looked great. I had no, cinematography was fine.
Editing I thought was also good because it kept the story together.
No, it was, everything production-wise, this was a very tight film.
100%. I would watch another one.
This is very organized,
I would watch one of her movies again. Apparently she co-wrote and co-directed or shadow-directed Chittagong. We watched a trailer for it about an armory raid.
Was it Chittagong?
I think that's what it was. And then she did another movie a few years prior to that. But and
I know that I saw the ending credits. It talks like she.
Yeah, there was a personal touch to it. She lost her kid at 17. I don't know. I think I felt like the last 30 minutes, and maybe this is the truth of the situation. The last 30 minutes were so impactful for me that I was able to overlook all these things. That I was able to just be so in the world that it didn't bother me that she decided to tell the Pakistani girl that she cheated on her, literally in the worst timing ever, But at the same time, though, I could kind of, maybe that's the thing. Maybe I could just relate to it a little bit. Not because I'm not saying I cheated on someone, but I'm saying I also, like, when my dad passed away within a few months, I fucking broke up with someone that I would have been with forever. Because for me, I was like, oh, and...
Well, you broke up there before.
Well, I finalized it. It was kaputs after that. But my mental process was, my dad's gone, this is a serious life-changing event, and life is precious. Right, you're valuable with your time.
It's a new beginning.
And it's like, it's time to just fucking move on and, like, to be in control of my own life, like, because it's fragile. Like, you can go at any minute.
It was an awakening.
It was. It really was.
This wasn't an awakening for her.
Well, I think it could be, and maybe that's just how I interpreted it. Right. I don't know. We'd have to ask her, but I genuinely feel like the dad holding it back triggered her to say that, because she didn't indicate at all that she was gonna. She didn't feel guilty. At least we didn't see her feel guilty at all.
No, like even the scene after when she
you kind of see it, but she didn't mention it. No, that would have been the time to mention it.
Thing,
that would have been the time to bring it up right there.
And I mean, and also this is like real nitpicky right here, but she's blind, so her sense of smell is supposed to be on point. She should have smelled that dick. She should have been like,
"Is that dick?
Yeah.
What kind of dick is that?
What's going on? Yeah, you got something going on."
I mean, that's kind of true.
I mean, I'm talking from personal experiences, man. If I get a girl that brushes up next to me...
She's not blind.
A not blind girl. I got a girl brushes up to me in the hallway. I got people asking me, what the fuck's perfume? Why do you have perfume on your shirt? And I'm like...
it's true.
Yeah, so don't tell me I'm lying, man. Tell me I'm fucking lying.
You're not. That's what I'm saying. I wouldn't even consider that to be nitpick. Yeah. To me, that's a valid criticism because it's like, okay, you can expect... All right. I'm not going to change my opinion about how I love the movie. I still do think it's one of the best Indian movies I've seen so far. But I think the criticisms, as we've talked it through now, I think they're more valid than I initially thought. Because at first it was kind of like, she's a bitch. What do you want? It is what it is. Am I not going to feel bad for her? Like that's the impression I got. And I think it's a little deeper than that. I mean, plus the mom situation.
No, and for me, it's just it's an issue I have with several different films. Where if I like at some point where I'm like not 100% on board with your journey, it's just like hard for me to like.
I guess because she doesn't have an arc.
No, she doesn't. And that's the thing.
She's presented a thematic arc, because I think the takeaway here is the story is the only problem of this movie for you. It's not the technical stuff.
But it's also that's always very important to me.
No, I know. I'm not faulting you for that. And so for me, I'm willing to sacrifice story for theme. You're not willing to do that. And that's okay. That's completely valid, which is why they make the movies that they do. They're so wide-ranging. You don't need to, because unless you're watching, there's very few filmmakers I feel like that balance theme and story perfectly. Because we could argue my favorite Goodfellas doesn't have a story. There's no story. Henry Hill doesn't have an arc. He's the same guy from beginning to end. His situation just got really, really shitty. But he's that same fucking dude, right?
It's a biopic.
Exactly. Well, I mean, let's assume it was just a story, But that's an example of theme,
But I think that's but
theme first and foremost.
Right.
But there is a through line in that one. You do follow them through the fun and games.
Yeah.
You do follow them through the consequences of their actions, as opposed to this, where there are no consequences, because there's really not. I'll agree with that. And maybe I was just distracted by the last 30 minutes. But I feel like, well, do you feel like it was worth your time?
No, absolutely. No, I think it's always good to see. This is way different than any other Indian film we've seen. Way different, and it's different. It's different than films I normally watch. And it's the first time we see Kalki Koechlin, however the hell you say her name.
I thought she did a good performance. I think if this was an American movie, she might get an award recognition.
When we review Waiting,
we'll see how she compares.
We're gonna see the different.
And the
I think it's a good introduction to her. So now we kind of get a feel
what she's capable of.
And I think that's a good thing.
Because at no point
especially because she's going up against like a heavy hitter in that film. I can't remember.
Supposed to be a legend.
Exactly. So
Nasruddin, I don't know how to pronounce the names. I'll get them one day. The Shah. His last name's Shah.
Is it Shah?
Yeah.
That's not Kapoor.
No.
That's
Nasruddin Shah.
Nasruddin Shah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to see. We've never seen him before, so I want to see. We see what she can do in this. In an indie film, now it's going to be more of a.
I was going to watch that movie right after this, and I was like, it's too much.
Too soon.
Because it was another movie.
Well, it's another, and we have another. Speaking of themes, it's another got a similar theme to it as well, or an element.
Yeah.
In the film.
But overall, I think. I don't really think we should rate the movie, but would you recommend it? I think we just do that from now on. Just recommend the movies.
I think if you're into indie films.
Which I am.
This is definitely something to check out. Like if you're into art house films, if you're into European style films,
this is for you.
This is for you. Like if that's the kind of thing you like, if you like character studies, even if the character has zero fucking art, this is a film to check out. And I would go. If you're like me, who like story over.
My
everything,
name is Khan.
Yeah.
I am Sam.
SOE is the way I live my life. Story over everything.
It's valid. It's valid.
This is not
because you can make a movie like this, Margarita with the Straw. Both of us can make that movie and pass it off as art, and say, "Oh, well, there's shortcomings," and I can make an argument. Well, it's because of X, Y, like I did. Literally, if you were to take what I just did right now and defended the movie based on its merits as a film and throw a theme out there or whatever, it's kind of bullshit. It kind of is all bullshit. Just because you make a good movie like this, in my opinion, a good movie like this thematically, doesn't mean you could tell a good story, because they're two different ball games, and not everyone can do both. So
we could fight people by bringing up what's his face, Ryan Coogler. He made Fruitvale Station, and then he made the greatest Marvel film ever, Black Panther.
Yeah, no. But I like Ryan. But Spielberg is to me is a perfect example of someone who blends both. When he wants to be artsy-fartsy, he can be artsy-fartsy, but he's always a good storyteller.
Yeah.
From point A to point B, always. To me, that's why he's the greatest filmmaker alive, because he does blend those.
How much of that do you think has to do with just experience? He's been doing this now. He's 70-something years old. He's been doing this 50 years, because I feel like a lot of the heavier tone films he made came later on in his career, after he made his blockbusters. Schindler's List came after your Indiana Jones and your E.T.
I think he's a legend. If filmmaking were a religion, he'd be Jesus Christ. And I mean that. He'd be a prophet. Let me put it, maybe not Jesus Christ, but he'd be a prophet. He'd be someone that you talk about for ages to come, and he's up there. He's in the heavens right now. Because you look at Duel being his first movie, he was already showing skill, talent. Already from that. Jaws, which is one of his very, very, very first movies.
Yeah.
It's a fucking great movie, period. So and it just got better. He has some duds in there. Terminal with Tom Hanks is not a good movie.
You don't like Close Encounters.
I don't like Close Encounters, but I don't like Close Encounters because of the fucking story, because of his art, because he decides to leave his family, and I don't buy it. But this turned into a Steven Spielberg thing. But he's made Empire with the Sun, and Saving Private Ryan, and Schindler's List, and he did.
But I'm saying those also came after.
Catch Me If You Can.
This came after his big blockbusters.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing. But anyway, I think we've talked enough about this movie. I think that's
gonna do it. So thanks for watching.
I recommend it, by the way.
Make sure to smash that like button. Be next week. Waiting. Also, make sure to check out the Reaction Hour. Episode 3 is also dropping this weekend. Dropped last night. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.